inductee into the National Ballooning Hall of Fame today is Bobby Sparks. Introducing Bobby today is going to be Michael Fairbanks. Michael is the son of Tony Fairbanks, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame right here in 2010. He's a highly accomplished balloonist in his own right. He took his first gas balloon flight with the Balloon Club of America in 1958, obtained lighter-than-air free balloon pilot certificate in '71. A few short years later, he competed here at Indianola in the Iowa Hot Air Balloon Championships in August of '74. He wrote and self-published a book on ballooning in '79 entitled Diamond One Down. He has written more than 18 articles published in the Ballooning Journal and Balloon Life magazine. He has become a Federal Aviation Administration designated examiner in '82 in the Philadelphia Flight Standards Office, and continued on as an examiner for another 23 years. He was also the pilot of the Lac Quartet gas balloon, I never could pronounce that, in Augsburg, Germany in 1976 for the World Gas Balloon Championships. He also flew as co-pilot in the September 1990 Gordon Bennett from Austria to Italy. Michael Fairbanks.
Thank you for inviting me to return here. Like I said, the last time I was here was 1974, and I was flying the Ladybug balloon, and I brought a photo display here that we could look at after the program, and of course there's stories about all these photos. And Bob Sparks and I would fly, he would fly the Lark balloon, I'd fly the Ladybug balloon. There's pictures of Sebring, Ohio, and around Chester County. It was kind of nice. And so I flew the Ladybug here in '74, and Pete Pellegrino was here, if you remember that name, the gas balloonist, Bill Meadows, Bob Waller-Grinda, Brian Baldwin with his Tyvek balloon. He was here and he flew all week, but he never registered. And that strange black balloon, that was a triangle, was here. And of course, Eddie Allen with a smoke balloon. It was really a precious time. But by a show of hands, I'd like to know how many people remember seeing our Ladybug balloon here flying in 1974. Okay, a few people. Now, to talk about Bob Sparks, interview Bob Sparks is difficult. He has so much experience and so much knowledge. He's just a fascinating person. So, in preparation of my 6-minute talk, I wrote 8 pages of his ballooning history, and I submitted that. And then I cut it down to 4 pages. And now, for the time we have, I'm just going to do a few comments. Now, but one thing I want to say is that, you know, some hot air balloonists, you know, they land and they keep children away. One thing that Bob Sparks and I have always done is bring the children in, have them snake the balloon, talk to people. Bob Sparks is the most interesting balloonist I ever met, and the most love for the sport, and also people, and bringing in spectators, getting involved. So Bob Sparks and I together have a little gift here. This is kind of an antique balloon, and it's like balloons within balloons. It's kind of interesting, wouldn't it? We would like to present this to the youngest person in the audience. I think it's a 6-year-old over here. Do we have a 6-year-old? So he has to come forward and get forward. It's just symbolic of involving people in ballooning, or his mother can come forward. I only got 6 minutes here. So just to... That 6-year-old will remember this event, you know, so we just love children. So to try to just a few comments, I'm going to start with the Great Lakes. I had to make a chart. Bob Sparks tells me, yeah, I flew over all 5 Great Lakes, and then it doesn't register. So you really make a map and look at the Great Lakes. And of course, John Wise, who invented the parachute stop so a balloon wouldn't crash, it would kind of become a parachute, a gas balloon. and he also invented the modern rip panel. He died crossing Lake Michigan. And of course, my dad, Tony Fairbanks, flew across Lake Michigan. Half his flight was bouncing in and out of the water. And so to actually understand the accomplishment of the Great Lakes, and I can talk about this more in stories, so I just want to mention that. That was an amazing
While I'm
thing.
here, just tell me about it.
And Bob flew the Lark balloon, and he flew solo. So he's doing the Lark balloon promotion, and this is 1975. And so Lark Balloon said, fly wherever you want, just keep the balloon flying in the air. And so Bob says, well, maybe I'll fly over the Great Lakes. This was between his first Atlantic attempt and his second Atlantic attempt. I just think he wanted to practice flying over water. And he flew solo, and this is really an accomplishment, and he had 8 propane tanks. Somebody told him that if he lands in the water, the propane tanks will float. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but so he made all 5 flights, but Lake Erie was a 6-hour flight. He got in the middle of Lake Erie, and all of a sudden, the wind stopped. And what's happening? He thinks he's in the eye of a thunderstorm, and he flew back to Canada. So we can look about this and talk about it, and I have all his flights. Thank you. So that was an accomplishment. And I think he just likes to fly over water. Now, he started in around 1966, he started flying with a man named Charles E. MacArthur, who passed away not too long ago. We don't know this name in ballooning. Charles E. MacArthur, he had a balloon school in Toland, Connecticut in the 60s, was teaching balloons, became an early designated pilot examiner for balloons. And it's quite a story, but he had a lot of other interests. But so we thank Charles MacArthur for introducing Bob to the sport of ballooning, and of course Bob became licensed in 1970, and I also became licensed in 1970, which is interesting, November. And then Bob Sparks flew an awful lot in balloons, and he became a designated pilot examiner for Allentown, and I became a designated pilot examiner for Philadelphia. And so for over 20 years, we were teaching balloons and also licensing, or maybe in some cases failing, applicants. And at the same time, we were flying together in hot air balloons, and also we were both learning from my dad, Tony Fairbanks, and we were in safety seminars, inflating gas balloons together, and Bob Sparks and I inflated the inflated balloon and assisted Thomas Gatch when he flew over the Atlantic, because Thomas Gatch was wanting to fly over the Atlantic, and Bob Sparks also had a mutual interest. 1974, Bob Sparks and I were there to help Thomas Gatch to launch him, and it's a kind of sad story. If you remember, Thomas Gatch flew out over the Atlantic in 12 cluster balloons and was never seen again. He went to oblivion, he was lost. And my wife shook his hand as he closed the hatch, and we launched it. It was at night, Harrisburg Airport, and there was a rim around the light-heart balloon, and I have some great pictures of Thomas Gatch. There was a rim around the balloon, and we had to put our fingers like this, and we walked the balloon. It was very difficult to walk. We kept saying, don't anybody grab on, don't anybody grab on, and we launched it in the darkness. And then also, Bob Sparks and I were involved with Connie Wolf. There's a picture of Bob Sparks here on the right, on the extreme right. That's an epic flight she did solo out of Philadelphia in 1976, and Bob Sparks and I helped launch her. So Bob and I were involved with Peter Pellegrino and also Ella Videla. We'll go to the Paxton balloon. So Bob Sparks flew the Lark balloon, and the Balloon Club of America flew the Paxton balloon. And the Paxton balloon advertised patented cigarettes, and of course the Lark balloon advertised Lark cigarettes, and then the Lark balloon became the private eye, because we lost the contract. They no longer sold Paxton, and they kind of we painted over it. We called it the private eye. One day we're flying the private eye balloon before it was named the private eye over a house development, and a lady comes out in a nightgown just having a tea, and he said, well, we'll call this balloon the private eye. Now, the Balloon Club of America, we started in 1952 as an exploding gas balloon club. And the final flight of the Balloon Club of America as the Balloon Club of America was in the private eye, but not this photo, with Bob Sparks and Ella Videla. And Ella Videla is today 92 years old, and she's in good health. And I have submitted information on Eleanor to the woman and ballooning section on Eleanor, but that's another story. And now, so, yeah, I have a lot of displays. Now back to the Lark balloon for a few minutes. Bob Sparks, in 3 short years, flew in every state in the United States. I believe every state in the United States. Never in Hawaii, but every state in the United States. And they said, Bob, you don't have to smoke our cigarettes, because Bob smoked cigarettes at the time. You don't have to smoke our cigarettes, but Bob was a smoker, and they give him 60 cartons at a time, and he would land a balloon and give out cigarettes, and then they would go in office buildings and say, show me your Lark cigarettes, and I'll give you $20. And they would go on subways and giving out cigarettes and giving out money. It was a glorious time, and that's probably how Bob Sparks ended up with today over 5,700 hours in ballooning. And thank you to Lark cigarettes, a lot of experience, and also 63 gas flights. And there were 4 different Lark cigarette balloons, 2 by Raven and 2 by Simcoe. And then I just want to, in kind of closing, mention about the 2 Atlantic attempts. And with the Yankee Zipper, that was August 7th, 1973. Oh, I did have my water crossing. You know, our careers kind of paralleled. I ended up with 700 hours. He ended up with thousands of hours. But I did fly over Long Island Sound one time. But I have no desire to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, these stories about the Atlantic crossing are not too well known. And this took a lot of nerve and a lot of planning and a lot of effort. And I think this should be written or in the ballooning magazine, because even though we failed to reach France, it's an amazing story of somebody who has that determination, is willing to risk their life. So, closing, I just want to mention both of these flights. The first one with the Yankee Zipper, August 7, 1973, Bar Harbor, Maine. It ended with a dangerous sea landing off of Newfoundland, Canada, after flying 5 hours with a bouncing wind and a thunderstorm. He should not have survived. Speeds 87 miles per hour, lifted into the sky at 60 miles per hour. And of course, there was a boat. Do we have the picture of the magazine and the boat? And this is Proper Mechanics, and you can see it's kind of a boat under it. But the waves were 12 to 14 feet high, and the winds were 55 mile an hour. And I don't care if you got a boat on you, in that kind of situation, to try to let the balloon, to disconnect the balloon from the boat so you can survive and you're not just dragged and then you're gonna drown. That was an amazing thing to be able to cut the balloon away. And of course, the balloon goes, and incidentally, I don't know whether Bob wanted me to tell you this story, but before he lifted off, before he inflated, he needed a wishbone valve for the top of the balloon. And it's a wooden valve, and we had one for an 80,000 cubic foot balloon, and we loaned it to him. And there goes our wishbone valve. 23-hour flight, 800 miles. this might be the wrong time, but I'd like you to return that wishbone now. And incidentally, Bob Sparks, Tom Sketch, and I still feel sadness about Tom Sketch. I still feel sadness about him. But, we were both in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1973, flying together. Bob had his